अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज़लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to another episode of Hafta. It has been a pretty news-heavy week.
Bastariyas, the leader of the banned Communist Party of India Maoist, was among 27 suspected Maoists killed in a gunfight with security forces in Chhattisgarh. Home Minister Amit Shah described him as the backbone of the Naxal movement, said his killing is a landmark achievement in the battle to eliminate Naxalism. The union government also says Operation Black Forest has concluded, during which 54 suspected Maoists have been arrested.
There is this map, which I don't know how credible it is, which shows that under Amit Shah, the quote-unquote red corridor has shrunk from a significant chunk to maybe 1/10.
Amit Shah, we don't agree or like with his strategy, but it is hugely successful. And Maoist movement is over. This 31st March is not happening, is my feeling after Karagutta. But everything changed with killing of Nambala Keshav Rao, which is the head of Maoist party. So what it looks is state is supported by good tech intelligence now. So who is successful? Successful is DRG, not CRPF.
Yes.
What is DRG? Is surrendered Maoists. Is the local Bastariya boys to kill Nambala Keshav Rao.
So
no CRPF went.
Is it the DRG that went in completely?
Absolutely.
Yes.
So there's no CRPF there?
No CRPF.
That's
Minimal CRP.
No CRPF in this operation.
Yeah, I mean, like they were sitting in the camps.
That's quite something.
Yeah. DRG is the head of the spear.
Which means actually then we can confirm that it's really in its last leg.
I guess my question, which I don't know if this is the right time to ask it, but should we be more suspicious when the government says it's killed dozens of Maoists? I think of thousands of encounters that have happened in Bastar in the last 25 years. I think there have only been 2 judicial inquiries that were headed by retired High Court judges. In both cases, they found all the victims to be innocent. And for me, I link it to how the state also treats people that it presumes to be Naxal sympathizers. You look at people like G. N. Sai Baba or that Velo doctor Binayak Sen. So if
An old quote by Ernest Hemingway. And I think that is true for this cycle of violence, that there is no hunting like hunting of a man. And those who have hunted armed men long enough and liked it never really care about anything else.
So as I said, 99% are Gond tribals, 50% are girls, 40 to 50%. In leadership, 0. No tribal, no women. It's all people from outside. So what kind of new democratic revolution are we talking about? In 40 years,
April beginning, I read in the papers there was a very interesting statement by the Home Minister where it was very conciliatory. He says, brothers and sisters, I'm quoting from it, no one wants to kill anyone. No matter what you've done, come to the mainstream. Government of India and Chhattisgarh will completely protect you. You are our own and no one is happy when an Naxalite is killed. So those, it seemed for a government that has made urban Naxal like this big thing and it's the biggest
Yeah,
enemy.
the outreach
was pretty interesting. And then from April to now, there seems to be a complete shutdown. That we don't want to talk, we just want to kill and come out.
So here what is happening is the tribals killing tribals. Now, if it is a Maoist getting killed or it is a state getting killed, both sides it is only tribals. The tribals are killing tribals. That what was happening in Salwa Judum is still happening. So no Choudhary ji, no Mishra ji getting killed, no Rao or Reddy is getting killed. It's only the Adivasis which should stop.
Political force and a sense in people that our aspirations will find a voice politically matters a lot. And then it could be anything. Then you can have tribals who join the BJP, the Congress, they can be communist capitalists, but there are our own people giving us various political options. Yeah.
But that's our task, that what is the future of Bastar? Will it be after Maoized? Will it be MOUized?
Or will there
or
be some
will there be
representation?
democracy? Or will their voices be heard?
Well, if we've come this far, I hope it is taken to its logical equilibrium, which is a peaceful and fair equilibrium, because that's the only kind that's sustainable. अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज़लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to another episode of Hafta. We're recording this on the 23rd of May at 11:15 in the morning. It has been a pretty news-heavy week. And before we get into the headlines, I'd like to introduce our panel. We have our guest in the studio who has very kindly made the time to come and sit with us. Thank you so much. I will have to introduce you formally, although many of our listeners and viewers may already know who you are. So thanks, Shubhranshu, for coming. Shubhranshu Choudhary, ladies and gentlemen, is a very experienced veteran journalist and co-founder of CGNet Swara. Is that correct? Did I get that right?
You got it right.
He's worked as BBC South Asia producer for more than a decade before starting work on experiments for democratization of media in the forests of central India. He won the Google Digital Activism Award in 2014 and was also named as one of the 100 leading global thinkers in 2014 by Foreign Policy magazine. What is the experiments for democratization of media in the forest central India? What is your
CGNet Swara?
So what is your stated objective, desired outcome of that pursuit? What is it that you're doing?
So the war which we are hope to discuss today, I grew up in that forest.
I see.
My parents are refugees. They came from what is now Bangladesh.
Mhm.
And as a journalist, when I visited, we reported this 5 killed and 7 injured, as we always do. But I grew up with Gond tribals. And as you know, 99% of what we call the terrorists are made of these Gond tribals. So when I started spending more time, as a journalist, when you go, and mainly with television, I was with BBC, you don't have much time. You do one interview here, one interview there, a few pictures, and you rush. So I kept going back. India is huge. There's a little bit of India after Delhi as well, and they have no voice. Politics has democratized. Everybody has one vote.
But media is not democratized.
80% of India probably doesn't get 20% space.
Hmm.
So can media be democratic? So that was my intervention. So I left my job and started living with them. Can everybody tell their own story?
And if I may ask, how is it that you grew up there? I mean, were your parents working there as,
Yeah, my father went to work there in the railways.
I see. So he was with the government and you just happened to be in that area.
Yeah, and I grew up in a very small railway station which has only one school. And it was run by the tribal welfare department. So that was the only school there, and all my classmates were from tribal community. So I got educated and I became a journalist, and I started working with BBC. And here, when I go back, I find some of my classmates there,
Where?
within Maoists.
Is that right?
And that is the start of journey of this democratization of media experiment.
So you've had very interesting insider's take on it. I mean, over time, not just for like a short period. You know what they're thinking since you.
It took me many years. They were saying in Hindi, like we're sitting under a tree, and they'll tell me, "हवा के जैसा media बना पाओगे? Can you make media like air?" I didn't understand what are they saying. So these are not scientists, these are not journalists, these are not thinkers. These are simple Adivasi boys and girls. Half of them are girls, as you know,
Right.
in Maoist party. They said, "See, we are talking. What is the medium we are using?" Air. I said, "Yes." Who owns this? Neither you nor I. It's nature. So nature has given us democratic media. You guys have made a media which is controlled by your boss. So you report for your boss. Your boss wants our forest. Your boss wants our river. Why will you report about us?
And that's also because there's an overlap of mining interests and media interests, even in ownership.
Today we have this news.
Yes.
The mining rights have been given. They are going to cut 1.23 lakh trees and over 900 hectares of forest land the Ministry of Environment has given the permission
Two?
to one company, Lloyd, I think, and in
Gadchiroli, yeah.
Gadchiroli, and the Maharashtra government has immediately started acting on it.
Nice. So we'll get into the detailed discussion on this, but that's our guest, Shubhranshu Choudhary. Before we get the headlines, a request. Many of you have expressed your love, support and concern over a case that we are all very proud of our colleague Manisha and our other lady colleagues who work at Newslaundry between the ages of 22 and 35, that bracket, have filed. And many of you have said, can you contribute and can you help in any way? So your good wishes are enough. Your subscriptions keep us going because we don't have to depend on anybody else. And since many of you asked, here's a QR code. You can contribute, you can subscribe, and you can help power standing for not just reporting for news, but also standing up for what is right. So thank you all. Jayashree, we can have the headlines and get into the discussion after. Sorry, I didn't introduce there's a panel. I took you for granted. Ghar ki baat.
It's okay.
Ghar ki baat 1.
So upsetting.
Shardool.
Hello.
Ghar ki baat 2. Raman Kirpal.
Hi.
Ghar ki baat 3. Manisha Pande.
Hello.
And joining us from Chennai is Jayashree.
Hello.
Yes, now that's the panel. And now the headlines.
Yes, so it's been a busy week. In updates in India and Pakistan, Pakistan's Army Chief General Asim Munir has been promoted to the rank of Field Marshal. This is the first such promotion in nearly 60 years. In India, Prime Minister Modi has said the Indian Armed Forces made Pakistan kneel during Operation Sindoor. He said the world and India's enemies have now seen what happens when Sindoor turns to gunpowder and that Garam Sindoor runs through his veins.
Sounds very odd in English.
Yes.
That imagery is horrible.
Although there was a Bollywood film by that name, Sindoor
Garam Sindoor.
Bana Barood. No, not Garam Sindoor.
Sounds like a B grade. You know what?
Sounds like, no.
Does not sound
Sindoor
good.
bane shole or shole bane angar or bindi bani barood. Bindi bani barood or something like that.
It was
It's something along
Fool
that
Bane
line.
Angare.
Arey, nahi, you've gone into a different zone.
Bindi Bani Barood also I haven't heard.
Anyway, all this even as a soldier was killed in action in India and 2 others wounded during a gun battle with a group of Jaish terrorists in Kishtwar district on Thursday.
Yeah.
Before we actually move on, and everybody like Modi ji saying Sindoor in veins, like it's made up of lead. I hope not. the major constituent is lead. You will have lead poisoning.
That's a corruption of.
No,
I think he
Sindoor
means the
is
pure-
made from lead.
No,
Now what
Never
we get.
meant in literal
it's not.
sense.
It wasn't earlier.
Right, the Union government has announced the formation of 7 delegations that will visit key partner countries, including members of the UN Security Council. It includes 31 NDA leaders and 20 politicians from other parties. A YouTuber has been accused by the Haryana police of spying for Pakistani intelligence. She's amongst 10 people in total who have been accused of such activities so far. This is across both Punjab and Haryana. I think she's a travel vlogger.
The media coverage again is just horrific with this. Flashing her personal pictures, making all sorts of insinuations about her affairs. There's no proof of any of that.
Yeah.
Haryana police has not said any of that, but it's complete character
They're
assassination.
doing what they did with Riya. They haven't learned
same
their
thing,
lesson.
same
They
thing.
really don't care.
Right. So the other big news of the week is Basavaraju, the leader of the banned Communist Party of India, Maoist, was amongst 27 suspected Maoists killed in a gunfight with security forces in Chhattisgarh. Home Minister Amit Shah described him as the backbone of the Naxal movement, said his killing is a landmark achievement in the battle to eliminate Naxalism. I believe the central government has said it will do this by March 2026. The union government also says Operation Black Forest has concluded, during which 54 suspected Maoists have been arrested. With this, more than 185 suspected Maoists have been killed in gunfights this year. In news from the courts, the Supreme Court granted interim bail to Ashoka University professor Ali Khan Mahmoodabad. He was arrested for his social media post on Operation Sindoor, but the court refused to stay the investigation against him. It termed his statements dog whistling. The Bengaluru police filed an FIR against Amit Malviya and Arnab Goswami for falsely claiming the Istanbul Congress Center is an office of the Indian National Congress.
And this
was
sorry,
so
go ahead.
stupid. No,
Yeah.
I mean,
And this man is opening a journalism school,
yes.
Arnab. I mean, the kind of, it's not even, there's no punchline. I mean, he is the setup line, he is the punchline, and he is the punchline to the punchline that now learn journalism from me.
But the joke is on us.
Yeah, the joke is on us. Not really on us. The joke is on the people who watch and
Yes.
not insist, but think that ad-funded journalism gets them the news.
Now, the Supreme Court rejected the apology by BJP leader and Madhya Pradesh Minister Vijay Shah for his remarks on Colonel Sophia Qureshi. It's now ordered the formation of an SIT to look into the matter. In Allahabad, the High Court has refused to quash the UP Police's FIR against Mohammad Zubair. This is because he put up a social media post that criticized Yati Narsinganand's incendiary remarks on the Prophet.
And sorry, on
And-
the earlier headline, this Minister Vijay Shah, while all this, he still has not been removed.
No,
The party has not
hasn't
removed
taken
him.
any action. against
No action. Zero
No
action has
action.
been taken yet.
Ah.
So
They have
just,
said
and the same party, the party which is ruling, had brought in Sophia, as the spokesperson.
not they have not said anything. What they have said has been in support of him.
Yeah.
His local BJP
Right.
colleagues.
Right.
But I meant there hasn't been no official stance or
Yeah,
reprimand for him.
The Supreme Court ripped into the Enforcement Directorate for crossing all limits and violating the concept of federal governments. This is when it was during a hearing on the ED's raid on TASMAC, which is State-run liquor shops in Tamil Nadu. The bench, led by Chief Justice, said you may register cases against individuals, but corporations, your ED is passing all limits.
Yeah, I mean, I'd really hope the Supreme Court comes down heavily.
I
And
think
what
this is second time ED has been called out.
yeah, but I mean,
In the past, recent days, I would. 10,
I mean, of
15
course,
days.
they've had egg on their face enough times, but
Ah.
also I liked what the Chief Justice said, I think this week or last week, that the judiciary, the executive and the legislature no one is supreme. It's the constitution that is supreme. So
Yeah.
no one can claim supremacy over the other, that, we are democratically elected, so we, are higher than the, because that is what the insinuation of some, I guess, ill-read or illiterate
Nishikant Dubey.
BJP, members seems to be. I think Justice Gawai clarified for those illiterates that no, that's not how it works.
The CBI has filed a charge sheet against former Jammu and Kashmir Governor Satyapal Malik and 7 others. This is over alleged corruption in the award of a 2,200 crore civil works contract for a hydropower project.
Wasn't it when he was BJP appointee governor? It must have
Yeah,
happened.
he was
huh?
BJP. correct. In fact,
Yeah.
he had said that he was asked to bend the rules for.
Ah.
Also, 3 days before this, he had posted on Twitter saying he's getting many phone calls, but he's been admitted in hospital, and it was a very distressing photo
Right.
of him lying in bed.
Hmm.
So, Mizoram has become India's first fully literate state, the Chief Minister declared on Tuesday. The literacy rate in Mizoram has crossed the 95% mark, which is considered to be equivalent to full literacy by the Education Ministry.
But why first? Wasn't Kerala there already?
I think that data is from 2011 or something, though.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So, the International Booker Prize 2025 has been awarded to Heart Lamp, a collection of 12 short stories by Kannada writer Banu Mushtaq and translated by Deepa Bashti. This marks the first time a Kannada book and a short story collection has won the prize, and Deepa has become the first Indian translator to receive this honor. Also, I think there's been no congratulations yet from the central government, which is surprising. 57% of districts in India are now facing extreme heat risks, according to a new study by the Council on Energy, Environment and Water. And these districts are home to 76% of the country's population.
A good time for us to remind you of Newslaundry's campaign, which is not just for a particular time, on stories on the climate, our right to breathe, while we are pegging it around the quality of air, not in Delhi, across India, because now this, criminally high AQI has reached Bangalore, Bombay, etc. But it is influenced by a bunch of climatic factors. So we want to spend a lot more time, energy, effort, and funds in doing stories related to the climate. So there's a QR code. You can contribute to that fund. Also, you can help us not just with money. You can also help us in filing RTIs, in telling us for the AQI in your areas at specific times. There's an entire page. As you scan this, you'll come to a page, or you can click on the link in the show notes below and see in the many ways that you can get involved so that we can help cover the climate in a more comprehensive and productive way.
Right. The IMF has imposed 11 new conditions on Pakistan for the release of the next fund tranche as part of its bailout program. The agency also warned that rising tensions between India and Pakistan, if sustained or deteriorate further, could heighten risks to the fiscal, external, and reform goals of the program. In Washington, D.C., 2 aides of the Israel embassy were shot dead by a gunman who is reported to have shouted, "Free Palestine." Benjamin Netanyahu has used the murders to now accuse France, Britain, and Canada of emboldening militants. He said they want Israel to stand down and accept that Hamas's army of mass murderers will survive. Since Wednesday, Israel's strikes on Gaza have killed at least 85 people. Netanyahu says he'll end the war only if Hamas releases all hostages.
Yeah. Anyway,
And finally, the US Department of Homeland Security has revoked Harvard's ability to enroll international students under the Student and Exchange Visitor Program. I think what that also means is that a bunch of students who are currently studying there will have to make plans to leave.
Yeah, and the ones who were accepted this year can't go.
Yeah.
Anyway, Mr. Trump
So-
has got a few tips of JNU versus the central government. And he's figuring out how he can do that. But yeah, this will go to court as well.
Yeah.
But thank you, Jayashree. Another reminder, QR code, please pay to keep news free, support our journalism so that we are not dependent on ads. So Shubhranshu, I'm sure it was all over the action where some top commanders of the Maoists have been gunned down after a long time. And there is this map, which I don't know how credible it is, which shows that under Amit Shah, the quote-unquote red corridor has shrunk from a significant chunk to maybe 1/10. And we've been discussing this for a long time. I mean, you tell us there was a certain point of view that Maoist activity actually peaked during the SEZs, when they were being given out big SEZ chunks of land, and during the very fast growth of the UPA government, UPA 1, when there were certain SOPs, lands, incentives being given to large industrialists at the cost of tribals. And that is when actually the Red Corridor peaked. That is also when Outlook did that cover story, which I think Arundhati had written. Or I may be confusing the two.
That was Outlook's cover story with Arundhati.
Yeah, so that was, peak time. Has it really shrunk? Is it just that we cover it less? And when they say that, he's managed to quash Maoism, is it just that they've managed, it's like Kashmir, till 5-8 weeks ago, they were boasting Kashmir is all quiet, it's become peaceful again, everything is lovely, everyone loves everyone, which our reporters who've gone there have told us is not true. Where does the truth lie? And your insights would be invaluable because of the time you've spent there, not just as a journalist, but even as a child.
See, Abhinandan, the Maoist movement today is confined only to Chhattisgarh. And the Maoist movement in Bengal, where it started, Andhra, Bihar, is different. There it is a Maoist movement. Not many people know, Maoists came to Chhattisgarh when it was not Chhattisgarh in early 1980s to hide, not to do revolution. So in any place, if there is communist movement or revolution, there is a 50-year history before of literature, of cinema, of songs, of poetry, which has happened in Bengal, which has happened in Nepal, which has happened in Bihar, which has definitely happened in Andhra, not in Chhattisgarh. Here, they came to hide. For 10 years, they did nothing. And when they can't go back to Andhra Pradesh, because to hide means it's a strategy. It's called rear area strategy. Yeah? So to your question, yes, Amit Shah, we don't agree or like with his strategy, but it is hugely successful. And Maoist movement is over. Like Jayashree was telling, there was this Operation Black Forest, which was a disaster. They called it the biggest operation against Maoist, which ran for 3 weeks, and there were various numbers. We don't know what is the exact number. Some said 30,000, some said 10,000 people. They claimed that the biggest Maoist force, which is called Battalion 1, they have encircled, but they could kill only 31. I'm saying only because they were claiming there are 350 people, 500 people. There was lack of cooperation between. It is in the border of this Karregutta hills. It's in border of Chhattisgarh, Telangana, and Maharashtra. So Gadchiroli, which you were just talking about. So it's around 80-kilometer Karregutta range, and all the big leaders slipped away. So we don't like this strategy of only military, but it is hugely successful, and Maoist party is over. The reason I say, so after Karregutta, I was of the opinion that what has happened after Karregutta, that okay, they couldn't get any of the big leaders, but Battalion 1 was fragmented. So in 10s and 15s, and they have, Amit Shah has given a deadline of 31st March. So when you are in small groups, it is difficult for you to do big operations. But again, at the same time, it is difficult to detect you. And it's a huge forest. It's called the Dandakaranya forest. It's around 100,000 square kilometers. It's in 6 states. So, and its rain is coming in 2 weeks' time. And it's very difficult to do any operation during rains. So 4 months is gone. When rains are gone, there won't be much time left. That was my feeling. So this 31st March is not happening, is my feeling after Karregutta. But everything changed with killing of Nambala Keshav Rao, which is the head of Maoist party. So what it looks is state is supported by good tech intelligence now.
So technology has made a big difference on this war.
That is my feeling. So what I was feeling that it will be difficult to detect these smaller groups, which is not the case. And I already know that number 2. So number 1 was Mr. Rao. Number 2, his name is Venugopal, who is issuing press notes almost every week now. His name is Mr. Venugopal, but he's known as Abhay when he's sending those press notes. He's already escaped. He left this place, Abujmar, which is partly in Gadchiroli, partly in... that's the headquarter of Maoist party from last more than 40 years. So he is now in safe haven in somewhere in Telangana. So big leaders are leaving already or have left, many of them. So it is the Adivasis, which were the 99%, but none in leadership. So this movement has no future.
So, I mean, I guess that's a good thing in a sense, because then this kind of violence will not really end with anything positive. And that's not to say there's no injustice. Of course, there's injustice, but I'm not sure this is the best way to address it. While at a human level, it may be, understandable, but it is definitely not at a structural level or at a macro level or at a governance level a sustainable way to achieve anything. Not in 2025, definitely.
And not in India. It may be possible in Afghanistan, in Myanmar, in Sudan.
Even there, I'm not sure, at this time.
Yeah,
but
it's a cycle that you never really know where it ends.
But I just had one more question, and I'd like to open it up to the panel. And if you could just briefly tell me, when you say the Maoist movement, you said Chhattisgarh didn't have any because it didn't have roots there. It was this, they had just come there to hide. It wasn't like it had a historical, cultural kind of, manure which sprouted this entire ideology. But since you grew up there, you interacted with these people at a very young age. when they say, do they identify as Maoists and do they know who Mao was and what his legacy is?
Very little.
So
like,
it's become a like common noun.
so like, a girl runs away, to Mumbai
Hmm.
to join the film industry.
Hmm.
50% of them are girls. Yeah. And I have interacted with hundreds of them. And 99% of them or more told me they were attracted by the dance and drama party. Maoist had this, they call it Jan Natya Mandali,
Yes.
who will go from village to village,
Performing.
performing. And all these, so like what I was telling, it is different story from Andhra, Bengal and Bihar, which was a fight for land, and it was a fight of landless people. In forest, there is no land problem. There is no landlord. You want 3 more acres, you cut more forest. No. So when the Maoists came here, what to do? So they invented this movement, and I can go into those details. So it was in reaction of police action. Police was harassing people who joined Maoists.
And also Salvajidum didn't help. Clearly.
Salvajidum was wonderful for Maoists. They wrote articles like Venugopal, I was talking about.
And that
who
got
ran
them
away.
more recruits than anything else.
Yeah, he wrote, "Thank you, Salvajidum." So the current leader of the Andakaranya, who I wrote a book about, let's call him Vasu. He's the Vasu. He once told me we called ourselves People's War. There were no people here. People came thanks to police atrocity, and Salvajidum was the peak of it.
It was the institutionalization of that. In fact, on one thing I will give it to the, I won't say newly minted, but now some of the abusive nationalists who have been embraced by the party as proxies. I remember even during the UPA time, many of them were not, of course, hardcore BJP bhaks like they are now. But I remember they used to argue with me while they didn't support the UPA. They were consistent on supporting Salvajidum. They basically were consistent on supporting violence to crush anything. That is, I think, that gives them a hard on. Violence, let's kill everybody, let's chop everybody up. And of course, now that it was a big failure. We don't hear much on the Salvajidum supporters who, many of them now are BJP supporters. But okay, so clearly Mr. Shah has managed to quell that. But before, after I take it across, I'd just like to come back to you that does that mean their concerns have also been addressed, or it's just brute force has quelled it, but unless those concerns are addressed, we can't take for granted that it won't rise again. But before I do that, Manisha, Raman, Shardool, Jayashree, you want to go first on what you make of the news that came and how there is a reduction in violence, at least as far as headlines are concerned. I mean, I don't know what's happening inside.
I have a comment, but also so therefore like a question for Shubhranshu, which is that see, at Newslaundry, we're a small organization. We report as much as we can. So we have a reporter called Prateek, who I think I can cite at least 10 stories that Prateek has done in the past couple of years on villagers being branded Maoists, being arrested, being hurled away, and who say that they are innocent, but they are called Maoists by the state and often killed with little or no proof. So I guess my question, which I don't know if this is the right time to ask it, but should we be more suspicious when the government says it's killed dozens of Maoists? I think of thousands of encounters that have happened in Bastar in the last 25 years. I think there have only been 2 judicial inquiries that were headed by retired High Court judges. In both cases, they found all the victims to be innocent. And for me, I link it to how the state also treats people that it presumes to be Naxal sympathizers. You look at people like G.N. Sai Baba or that Velo doctor, Binayak Sen. So if the state is doing such a shoddy job of identifying what it calls Maoist sympathizers, should we not be more suspicious of the job it's doing in hunting down these so-called Maoists? Like, so when it tells us that 28 have been killed, would you say that it is accurate to say that all 28 were Maoists by definition, or is that always open to scrutiny? Especially because, I know you run a community thing over there, because it is very difficult for the media to report. So therefore, what we see in mainstream newspapers and journals and whatever is the official version of events, where it's the IGP or whatever who's telling you that X has died and this has died, and here are the pictures of the victims. So when there's such a reliance on official versions, Is there not a lot of room for it to be inaccurate?
What you said in the headline that in this year they've killed 145 Maoists.
Yeah.
I go by, see, there is other side, and other side is Maoists. And when you are doing journalism day to day, it's very difficult to get their version. But recently, thanks to mobile phones and internet reaching remote areas, we almost get a Maoist press note, if not the same day, second day or third day. And in this last 2 years, I think they've killed around 440, which I last counted. There are 2 incidents where Maoists claimed that they were not Maoists. But not only Amit Shah has been hugely successful, but they've killed the quote-unquote Maoists. Because Maoists have claimed that out of these 27, the Maoist press note hasn't come yet, they will tell how many were their people and how many were not.
So they're clearly putting out information that we have lost X number of people.
Yes.
And
But isn't this also what the villagers say? That they're, I mean, on one hand, cops are saying that you are Maoist. On the other hand, the Maoists are saying, yeah, they are Maoists. And they're like, often they are living in between. Is that actually the case in some things or not really?
So there will be many in between, but I'm talking of last 2 years, and there were, I think, 2 incidents where villagers also came out and Maoists also said that they were not Maoists. But in rest of the cases,
Have been.
so there have been. So who is successful? Successful is DRG, not CRPF. What is DRG? Is surrendered Maoists. Is the local Bastariya boys and like to kill Nambala Keshav Rao. No CRPF went.
They're recruited as in the force.
This is illegal because Supreme Court asked in 2011 order that they should not be recruited, but they're hugely successful
because they know.
They know the language, they know the terrain, they know the people. They know, say like, I can say I am not a Maoist, because I'm not wearing this green dress. But we were friends. We were in the same side for 20 years.
Then you know how to take them on.
I know who you are, you know who I am. So this war is one CRPF or central government has helped. But this war
has been won by their
has
own.
been won by the Bastariyas
Local.
themselves. This war was won by people of Bastar who has given information. Like Cobra. Cobra is the elite CRPF commandos. If you send a Cobra and don't give it intelligence, it will hit at the wrong place. And that's what Maoists wanted. They were so happy with Salva Judum. You kill 5, and if they are wrong people, 25 more join. So they will oppose
Works for
these
them.
killings. But they were so happy behind. Oh, wonderful. They should kill more. I mean, they won't say it in public.
Yeah, but it basically gets them.
But this time, see, things have changed 10 years after Salva Judum. When Salva Judum happened, it was so big. Like Maoist movement started in 1990 when Salva Judum 1 started. That was called Jan Jagran Abhiyan.
Yes.
1980 they came to hide, as I said. Till 90 they were loitering around. But 90 onwards, things are not changing in Andhra, that they will go back. So they said, okay, we will do revolution here. They threw their head, Kondapalli Sitaramaya, and Ganapati, who was before Nambala Keshav Rao, the General Secretary, said, we will do revolution here. This guy is senile, he's saying it will not happen here. And the tribal leadership told tribals that police is harassing you in the name of Jan Jagran Abhiyan. You can't go home. You can't, so they're raping, they're killing, they're burning your houses for giving chai and coffee and water to Maoists, showing them path. These are good people. These are here from last 10 years. They have helped us, and they helped in last 10 years, and we can go into those details. So please join. That was the start of Maoist movement. It was not like Andhra, not like Bengal. So it was a reaction to police action. And that became so big in Salva Judum that there was no place for fence sitting. Either you'll have to join Maoist
It's
or go to the
basically you're
state.
with us or against us, like the Bush doctrine kind of thing. So,
I have a question.
Shardul, you.
Before I comment, I have a question for Shubhranshu. Shubhranshu, the DRG, District Reserve Guard, they came after Selva Judum was completely disbanded and the court decision came. So I wanted to ask you, are there common personnel between people who were in Selva Judum associated in some way and now part of DRG? Is it?
Oh yeah, I don't know the exact number, but
Yeah.
big number of them is SPOs. They were called
Yes.
Special Police
Police
Officers.
officers.
Yes.
And they have recruited many people from Bastar region as well. So this is 100% local people, and a big number surrendered, and big number SPOs.
Yes.
That's what make DRG.
In the current operation where they got Basavaraju, is it the DRG that went in completely? or-
Absolutely.
Yes.
So there's no
100%.
CRPF.
No CRPF.
That's
Minimal CRP.
No CRPF in this operation.
Yeah. I mean, like they were sitting in the camps.
That's quite something.
Yeah. DRG is the head of the spear.
Which means actually then we can confirm that it's really in its last leg, because if you don't have the local support, and if you have a unit of local Bastariyas, like you said, taking on,
See,
there's no
Bastar
way this
people,
movement can
as I said,
go on.
so 2004 Maoist party went like this, 10 times. The intelligence report says 21 times more. This battalion 1 was formed just after. There were so many people, they didn't know what to do it. But for 10 years, this continued. Around 2015, we were doing this CGNet Swara there, and the people are telling their stories, and they'll come to our meetings, and they said, Dada, ye to theek hai. Means this is okay, this is very good for us, we have a voice, we can tell our stories, our problems are getting solved, but we want this movement to be over.
So there's no popular support for
So
Maoists.
that was the start. So 2004 it went up. 2014-15, nothing to do with Mr. Modi. The same tribal leaders who told them in 1990 that they're good people. If you can't go home, join them. They still said they're good people. They're better than police. They live with us. They speak our language. But their movement is harmful for us in the long run. This is not good for our community.
So there was a certain maturity and looking at the long term and the bigger picture in this, even within the community that was marginalized.
Absolutely.
It wasn't like completely reactionary in that sense.
No, reactionary in starting. They were, as you said, do they know about Mao? No, still they don't know. The Hidma, who is the biggest guy, government of security forces are after.
This mythical guy
I
who's
spent a week with him,
You have?
and
Because
forget
he's
about
like,
Mao.
no one knows who he is, where he goes, how he moves.
So that is a created, image.
Aura.
He's a normal guy, in a class 2 fail. So I started asking him, you're talking about China, you're talking about Russia. Have you been there? आप क्यों मजाक करते हैं दादा? Why are you making fun of me? I've not seen my district headquarter, he said. No. He's a young, simple guy. He's not that much young now. He doesn't look like what photographs police is putting out. But he's definitely not what all these spin doctors are making out about him, that he is the mastermind. Masterminds are people like you and me. Masterminds are Bengalis and Telugus who design, and they put this Hidma character in the front. So why did Hidma join? I asked him, okay, chodo, leave all these China and Russia. Please tell me, why did you join? And you know what he says? No revolution and no Mao. He said, one day a forest guard came to my house and slapped my elder brother. I said, that is it. I want to change this. This forest is mine, and nobody can take this forest from us.
In fact, even during the Punjab movement, so many young people who did not see themselves as separate from India, just the reason that they actually, even if they didn't join the movement, they would take every opportunity they could to, hit out at cops violently was because of how badly they had seen their family members treated by cops. It was not ideological. It was just that. And that is something I think at a very fundamental level, I think culturally our security forces and those who have power don't seem to understand that if you humiliate someone, they don't have to be ideologically opposed to you. It's just so many people's politics is influenced by because they were very, treated badly by one minister because they were made to stand outside his house. They've suddenly become, ideologically inclined one way or the other. Yeah,
personal hurts creates worse enemies. Like if you humiliate or hurt someone personally, they will hold it against you because they'll remember it. It's their own.
But how's he? I mean, considering he's not very, well-read or well-traveled or well-educated, how has he managed to, at some level, there's some organizational skills required to run an operation of this scale. And if he is seen as the head of that, I mean, is he instinctively really good at managing people? What is it that?
See, I've spent only a week with him. But what
That's-
I think is,
we are in an age of media where people write a profile of people after spending 2 minutes with them. So just don't worry about it. Week is enough to write a book.
People spend an hour reading tweets and be like, yeah, I'm
so
going
the
to write on them.
Maoist
So-
spin doctors have created this image of Hidma, is my feeling. Of course, 99% of your foot soldiers are tribals. And they speak only Gondi, and he's a Gondi speaker. Barely he could speak, few lines of Hindi. So he could be a good organizer in his language with his own people, but the Brahmins, the Chanakyas, or which we call managers or leaders, are definitely not the tribals. Are these Telugus? So I looked at their, say, like battalion has many companies, So who is in this company? Every company, I'm talking about that trip, had a Telugu at the top. Who is the brain? And all the fighters are tribals.
So I think it's a very interesting point you've made several times now, that the tribals are just foot soldiers and the guys who are so-called, who are planning everything are outsiders.
People like you and me.
So there would be
Who
a
want to do
sense
their
among
revolution.
tribals, which is why perhaps that
Even the
tribals also
entire-
feel that these guys aren't really, it's not in our benefit, they're not us. And we are ultimately just being used. I mean, I
So
guess
that
sense
feeling came much later. So as I said, 99% are Gond tribals, 50% are girls, 40 to 50%. In leadership, 0. No tribal, no women. It's all people from outside. So what kind of new democratic revolution are we talking about? In 40 years, 1980, I'm talking about only Chhattisgarh. So Maoists have created an army of killers. If you look at official figures, this many number of policemen got killed, this many number of Maoists got killed. The number of people killed in Mittal, nobody talks about them. That is double than this number. They have been killing in ones and twos.
And
these...
they are not combatants on either side.
No, simply on suspicion.
Suspicion of being informers.
Yeah.
Like the public
Like
courts
you were
are
talking
notorious.
about Maoist sympathizer, state is killing, and Maoists are killing. So in last 3-4 weeks, Maoists have announced a ceasefire, unilateral ceasefire. Even after that, I think they have killed half a dozen people.
Yeah.
Just on suspicion of aiding the state.
Yes. And this goes on.
One thing I wanted to make a note of, and I don't know if you have any opinion on that, but April beginning, I read in the papers there was a very interesting statement by the Home Minister where it was very conciliatory. He says, brothers and sisters, I'm quoting from it, no one wants to kill anyone. No matter what you've done, come to the mainstream. Government of India and Chhattisgarh will completely protect you. You are our own, and no one is happy when an Naxalite is killed. So those, it seemed for a government that has made urban Naxal like this big thing and it's the biggest
Yeah, the
enemy,
outreach is...
the outreach was pretty interesting. And then from April to now, there seems to be a complete shutdown. That we don't want to talk, we just want to kill and come out. What changed between April and
No, say like
this 1
today,
month?
before coming here, I read a statement from Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh, and he said, we don't want to talk to these Hyderabadis. We want to talk to this 99% is what he means to say. See, the Abhay I was talking about, in his last statement, doesn't say very clearly, but he is hinting. See,
Abhay is?
Abhay is the
spokesperson.
Venugopal,
Mentioned that
okay,
the number two
spokesperson.
who
The number
goes
two.
by the
So he
takhallus.
hints there that, give us 1 month of ceasefire. We need to discuss. We are a democratic party. To discuss surrender is what we are talking. So what we need today, see this, there are 1,000 people now. They may be misguided, but they are our brothers and sisters, which Amit Shah very kindly said. So it's very difficult to compare Maoist party, which is a political party, with dacoits. In the other end of Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh was part of Madhya Pradesh. Jayaprakash Narayan, engineered or helped the surrender of dacoits. That's what is needed here. Somehow these 1,000 people stuck there, somehow a mass surrender needs to be negotiated.
So, Shubhranshu, I know we have you only for 10 minutes. You've very kindly made the time and you have to get back in 10 minutes. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. I mean, you are clearly an expert in this zone. And at the risk of, burdening you with being an expert on any conflict zone, I'd mentioned this in Hafta a few weeks ago because I happened to be speaking to some retired, very senior gentleman from the forces who had said that there is such a reluctance of the government to recruit locally Kashmiri. And he said when he was there, they had recruited and they had been able to quell a lot of the discontent because we recruited locally and these guys know those youngsters, the guys who are pelting stones. He was like, dude, it's your buddies, just go control them. While there would be little, sparks of outrage and violence, it was very difficult to completely radicalize them because I put their own, community to tackle them. And that has completely been stopped by this government. But you're saying there it has worked very well. So I'm curious, if it's working so well there, why have they discontinued local recruitment in Kashmir? Would you reckon it's because of religion?
I don't know. They have borrowed like this SPO. When I used to go to Kupwara as a BBC person, the same guy, Lieutenant General KM Seth, see like Chhattisgarh. Why was Chhattisgarh created? Chhattisgarh was created because they need to do mining and small states are manageable. They put General Seth there as governor. 1, 2, 3. If you look at governors, all were these military people. So they brought this SPO strategy from Kashmir. Of course, the SPO strategy was used in 1948 also when the first, we didn't call it Maoist at that time, in Telangana happened. So these are old strategies of recruiting SPOs and recruiting locals. And they have been using it very successfully here. I don't know much about Kashmir, not been following this for more than 20 years now. But it was very distressing. All these people who surrendered, they could have been, and there is a court order for it, they could have been taken as a teacher, as a health worker. But you come from one combat and you push them to another side. They don't like it. They have been successful. They have been very useful, but state has used them. They didn't like it. They didn't want to fight. So here what is happening is the tribals killing tribals. Now, if it is a Maoist getting killed or it is a state getting killed, both sides it is only tribals. The tribals are killing tribals. That what was happening in Salwa Judum is still happening. So no Choudhary ji, no Mishra ji getting killed, no Rao or Reddy is getting killed. It's only the Adivasis which should stop.
Jayashree, you had a question?
Very interesting.
Yeah, I just want to ask, what do you see, so with Baswaraju's death, I assume now, Kada very demoralized, sort of influx. So what do you see as the sort of immediate future for the movement as a whole? Like, will it regroup very quickly? Or do you think this is when the central government needs to take certain decisive steps? And if so, like, what would those steps be?
I think Maoist
Because you said
party-
that you didn't think initially that they would meet that target of March 2026, but now you're saying it looks a little more likely. So,
I won't waste my time on future of Maoist party. That is over. What
Yeah.
I would say, two things. One is, which I was talking about, saving these 500 to 1,000 lives, who are still in the Maoist party. How do we save these lives? Do we have a group of people who can engineer this surrender? And the second is, which is even more important, is Bastar. Bastar is bigger than Kerala in size. Abujmar, which is the headquarter of Maoist, is bigger than, say, Goa in size. This is a transfer of power movement. Half of Bastar was controlled by Maoists. Entire Abujmar, it was a no-go area.
This
Yeah.
is late 2000s.
From
Till
80
now.
to now.
Till
Yeah.
now.
Okay.
Now, state will be going. So, what will be our development policy?
That
Like
will determine
Hidma-
whether
Hidma will be dead if there is no ceasefire and no peace talks today or tomorrow. But the issues he's raising is not
they
going
will
to
not
die.
go away overnight. Sure.
So is state addressing them? That is a bigger issue. Mining has already started in Abujmar. Like Forest Rights Act, which Hidma was talking about when I was talking to him. I said, what you're talking, there is a law. There is a law called Forest Rights Act. Arey dada, wo to kagaz mein hai. These are all in paper.
But, I mean, that's true for so many laws in India.
Yeah.
But
So
Raman sir, go
will
ahead.
it be delivered
No,
after?
I mean, the point that he has raised about forest rights, I can also say, I mean, this movement, the entire thing was very complex. I mean, he has given, very nicely this killing tribal is absolutely right. But when I was reporting, I remember 2004, 2005 is the time when the mining increases. It peaked. And then 2005, the government also came up with this Sulva Judum to, I mean, as recruited tribals as SPOs, trained them, and they started attacking. And I remember in 2007, 2007 there was DGP's meeting. DGPs of all the states had come to Delhi, and there was a meeting of them, and the Home Minister, whoever was, I forgot, maybe Chidambaram. So he at that time, in that year 2007, the killings in Chhattisgarh, they were more than the killings in Kashmir in 2007. So this is a
The
time
violence had peaked.
when the violence had peaked, and since then they started. Sulwa Judam was, of course, the main way to counter the Maoists.
time.
But then it went wrong. I mean, they lost the local support. Maoist, I think they lost the local support, and that is how the
And I'm sure
and
there's a fatigue element as well, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, one
Of
cannot
course.
discount him. There is a fatigue element,
Absolutely.
and technology and being aware of what's happening in different parts of the world, how things are moving forward, the inevitability of a certain kind of, a dominance of the conventional development narrative as opposed to the sustainable.
Mobile phone
Yeah.
has
Is a big
changed
thing, yeah.
everything. Maoism versus mobilism. And now what state want is MOUism. What you were talking, memorandum of
A
understanding.
different
with
kind of
all these-
Maoism.
of these mining companies. So there are lots of, but mobile phone has played a major role. Like in Andhra, people still love Maoists. When you go and talk to them, they gave them land. But after land, you need water, you need electricity, and
not
state
just-
gave that. Here also, state was, they divided Bastar into 7 districts. There's mobile phone, you can call the officer. So state has started responding, and there's this fatigue. So information was given by people. So it was not Greyhound which finished Maoist in Andhra.
I
It is
mean,
in the
it's local
same way
support. Without
it
that,
is-
it's just not
So
possible.
the people has moved to state, 15 onwards. Salva Judum has shifted people
Right.
to Maoists. So those are the chunks. 80 to 90 Maoist came, no people. 90 Jan Jagran Abhiyan people started joining thanks to police atrocities. Salwa Judum took it to peak. 15 onwards,
It's come
they
down.
said, this violence is not
But where
good.
were they getting their weapons and their economic support?
Where was that
Do you have
coming
any
from?
idea how these Maoists were
China.
getting?
Or was it just through robberies?
Means I have never seen any, like you saw in Punjab or Northeast or Kashmir.
That level of support they haven't
Anything coming from outside, I've never
China,
seen.
which is what
I have
like there's
never
no-
seen. And MHA also never said that they're getting anything
I
from
saw
outside.
some of the IB reports which were saying that the Pakistan or the Khalistanis, they are supporting, they are sending the weapons. In fact, they had also got, drones.
Well, so, but
The-
IB is not the most credible.
Huh.
IB also.
No, I read, of course, not credible. I said I read a
Yeah.
couple of the reports. So I still am
But one thing I
not giving any credence
Yeah.
to it, not giving any credence to those
The
reports.
crates
But
of
that's
new
all we've heard.
AK-47, which we have seen in, say, like
Yeah, it-
Nagas
Correct.
and Northeast, I've never seen any.
yeah.
Whatever I've seen is they've killed so many policemen.
Yeah,
Yes.
basically they've robbed
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kotwalis and chowkis, etc. I mean,
And-
that
Oh yeah,
is
the
they've done
whole
so
Nayagarh armory they looted.
Yes.
They looted armory. So and like you said, that petty packed, what they call petty packed equipment has not been recovered from them ever. So it couldn't be petty packed. But thank you so much. I know you've taken a lot of your time. I know you have to get home to deal with the medical situation in the family, but we really appreciate you taking the time to come all the way here for an hour to just help us understand this complex problem. But before we say goodbye, any recommendation that you think could enrich the lives of our listeners and viewers?
So I'm reading a book these days. I was talking about Abujmar. So Abujmar is 4,000 square kilometer inside Bastar, and it is partly in Gadchiroli. And there were two people, one anthropologist called Edward J, I think was his name. And the book I'm reading is by his friend called Shani. And Abuj Mar. So Abuj means jo buje nahi, which you don't understand.
Abuj.
And Mar means a flat plateau. So why should an area be Abuj? We live in the 21st century, but this is the only area in the country which is not surveyed yet. It was not surveyed by British and then by mainstream Free India, and then 40 years it's Maoist there. So so the name of the book is Saal Vano Ke Dweep. So like Abuj Mar, when I was talking to some Gondi teachers, and they said, this is not a Hindi word. I said, what? So Abuj means Sal and Mar means jungle. So Sal Vanoka jungle. It's like Sal Bani. So we don't even understand these places. So these places are getting their independence. And democracy will go there, development will go there, the roads will go, electricity will go, mobile phone will go.
And there'll be friction inevitably when that
So
happens.
mining will go. So what I feel is this is a very good time to take more interest in these places. We call them red areas. So there are 3 types of areas in Bastar: red, yellow, and green. Red means were complete Maoist control. It was around 15,000 square kilometers out of 39,000. Yellow, where state and Maoist both are going. Green, where state is. These red areas are going to be, I talked about transfer of power. What kind of development there? And that is a huge challenge for a country like ours, that these are forest economies or these are sustainable economies now. So good things, they grow probably the purest form of organic food. Or will we supply DDT and fertilizer to finish them in the name of
Also,
increasing their
I think
productivity
political
by 5 kg?
representation. Political representation. What participation? These thousands of Maoist tribals who joined the ranks of Maoists, who you're saying even the Home Minister's outreach to, how can we involve them in the political process of, to give democracy to their hands? We've done it successfully in the Northeast, where Bodoland militants have joined the BJP. So can they have a say in their own,
Actually, if we've come this far,
we
can
need to have them in politics.
we take it
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Maoists have tried. So there is a group of Maoists, say like in Nepal, they did this, they call it United Front. The Maoists have many strategies. So they put up a Maoist United Front called Moolwasi Bachao Manch. This was 3-4 years ago. And that kind of strategy brought peace in Nepal. But state never responded to that strategy. And these are young boys and girls, what you were just talking about, Manisha. So very articulate. It is product of post-Corona. So when Corona happened, thousands of boys and girls from these ashram shala, these hostels where they were studying, because of Salvajuru, many schools got closed. So these residential schools, they went home for 2 years, and they got recruited by Maoists, and these are the boys and girls which should be coming to the mainstream politics.
They have to be, and we've
They've
done
now
that.
been banned.
Yeah.
But that's our task. That what is the future of Bastar? Will it be after Maoized? Will it be MOUized?
or will there
Or
be
will
some
there be
representation?
democracy? Or will their voices be heard?
Well, if we've come this far, I hope it is taken to its logical equilibrium, which is a peaceful and fair equilibrium, because that's the only kind that's sustainable. But thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time, and have a great week. And I hope all goes well at home.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Yeah, Shardool, you always come very prepped with notes, etc., which always impresses me.
Yes. And he's furiously scribbling as we talk.
Yes, so
That he could be doing like I used to do in economics class.
funny enough, I have to.
I nod.
I have to
Pretending,
I have
huh?
to say something about economic class further in the episode.
Huh.
But I was scribbling because, sadly, I'm very familiar with violence, but not in Chhattisgarh. I have had a life full of violence, so I understand that equation on
And how it...
Yes, how it plays out
psychologically-
and how it plays out in different levels. Top tier violence will be different from the mid tier person's violence, and the person who are they doing violence against will do further violence. The cycle of violence is like this. And when Shubhranshu was talking, one quote, which is I love speaking in quotes, not speaking, at least collecting them, an old quote by Ernest Hemingway. And I think that is true for this cycle of violence, that there is no hunting like hunting of a man. And those who have hunted armed men long enough and liked it never really care about anything else. This is so true for this situation, because I understand India-Pakistan conflict, and it's very easy, and I feel familiar in equating the do's and don'ts in this. This is very complex, because this is handling of state's enemy within the country from among your people, and they took up arms because of real or perceived injustices, but for them they were real.
And that's true for so many of the conflicts
And
in the
this-
state.
and-
But I just had one question.
The
I
state-
know our guest wasn't here long enough, Shubhranshu, because he had to attend to an emergency. But I want to throw this question out there. If anyone has a considered view on this, since he said a lot of the recruits are locally, a lot of them are locally, local recruits. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what is the difference in that and Salva Judum?
So I'll come.
Salva Judum was orchestrated by the state.
State.
It wasn't the people movement. They orchestrated as a people movement against Maoist. So they trained some.
Okay, so they were extrajudicial kind of. Okay, these guys have been formally recruited.
Yeah.
I see.
They
And Salvajuram was also trained by the state. So it was like a
State.
militia.
They trained
armed
and
them.
incentivized local people to commit violence against their own people.
Acha, this is institutional kind of recruitment.
Yes.
Okay, got
And
it.
this is
Understood.
disgruntled people who are seeking or helping the state against situation which has become untenable.
As opposed to say, here guns, now go.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Understood.
They were made SPOs, special police
Right,
officers. they were given training also.
Right.
So
They
training
fell
and
into the
weapons.
grey of
Yes.
official, unofficial.
So CRPF, I mean, they used to be the front of the CRPF.
Understood.
So CRPF will go later. First they, and they started killing their own people also.
Understood.
Yeah, because personal grudges. So what I was saying was, now in a situation like this, which maybe in my head that made sense, how to identify this conflict in the briefest way possible, and I wrote it down that this requires a very different and delicate strategy, like you said. Like now, if not if, like there are official figures, like when UPA put out the figures, there were about officially 126 districts which were considered red, like Maoist. Now there are only 38, according to us. So it has shrunk significantly. And also, like, I may not know the conflict, and I struggle to understand which side you fall on. But if you look at the behavior of the people participating in the conflict, like, no party which is winning in an armed conflict will seek active negotiation. So that should tell you that Maoists are on a back foot and they want people to come to the table so people stop dying.
But I think mobile access and just access to what's happening in the world makes a big difference to any conflict.
Yes.
Actually, it works
Huge.
both ways. It can also work in recruiting people, like in the case of seeing the violence in Gaza, etc.
Yes.
And it can also help disincentivize. It can work both ways. But
two small points, and then everybody speaks. The one which Shubhranshu also identified, and you did, that at some point, at some level, progress becomes unstoppable. The charm for communist armed revolution, the Soviet USSR is over. It has been over for a while. So that charm from the popular culture has gone. The other part is the state and how it's cleaving the leadership and the people, like Shubhranshu identified so beautifully. That the foot soldiers are also feeling the brunt of the violence, and it has been going on for too long, and they see children, and because of mobile phone, they see other people moving ahead.
Right. That makes a big difference. But on this, and if anybody has anything else, please come in, and then we can move on to the emails and the subscriber feedback. But this whole, at a bigger picture, the communist versus the capitalist, the Cold War and all that, I'm wondering if someone's written a piece on it or scrutinized it. I don't think it's a coincidence that the two nations that were the strongest and pushing their own political ideology were both self-sufficient on energy and oil.
Yeah.
Because I really think this entire bullshit, especially when I see their bios, communist or capitalist, I'm like, dude, it's like when someone has an Ayn Rand quote as their life mission. I'm like, dude, just grow up a little bit.
See, when someone calls themselves a communist, they usually mean they're a socialist, is what I feel. But it's...
when someone calls themselves a capitalist, I wonder what they mean. But I'm just saying, had America not had the largest reserves of oil, and Russia not had the fourth or fifth largest reserves of oil in the world, how would they have funded their political ideology? They would both have been bankrupt. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it's not a coincidence that any country that has said that we will, Saudi Arabia, take oil away from them, or all the time when Gaddafi, stood up to the US, take oil away from him, take oil away from Venezuela. Anyone who has stood up to any political ideology has done so on the back of a naturally occurring mineral that they have. Now, apparently, the Democratic Republic of Congo has apparently the largest, what rare earth metal do they have, which is required for all EVs? Now, tomorrow, if they get politically organized, they can hold the world ransom and say, no, we will float our own ideology. It can be any ideology.
But that's the nature of, power or pushing back against power, right? You have a bargaining chip, and that gives you a position from which you can argue. Otherwise, you have nothing. So it's the only way you can be taken seriously by a country is...
Or you have something more solid like internet during Mahabharata. Then you can say, okay, fuck you all.
Yeah.
We can...
I can fly.
So you were saying.
If you see the way development has happened in our country, and say development is our ideology, so I can see that, I can foresee that corporatization of the forest area, which is going to open up, is going to happen, because the development in our country had that hedonistic, tendency. I mean, if you see, I have done stories on mining in Goa when the China was going to come up. They were hosting Olympics. They needed iron ore. So I saw a politician digging his own agriculture field to get that iron ore and making 50 crore rupees out of that before the
government
state
takes it
realized,
over.
the government took note of it, and FIR was filed, and he was put into jail. I'm sure he must be out by now.
Right.
So I think this is at individual level, and at state level, and at the central government level. See the way the mining rights have been given to the entire corporate world, in these jungles. Goa is an example. Goa, if
Yeah.
anybody wants to see the how the mining's Goa, I'm talking of the that forest which runs from Maharashtra to Goa. That area is very well known. So I think that is, if you just go by that, and if development is an ideology, I think we are going to see the corporatization of this virgin jungles.
Right.
I think political representation is key. And to compare with Kashmir, one of the big issues with Kashmir, apart from a foreign actor playing, is that the people of Kashmir have never seen their politicians as people speaking for them. There's always this accusation that muftis and Abdullahs have to suffer, that while we suffered, you are Delhi's puppets, or you have this life there, and you are not in sync with what we are going through. And it's sad because for them, it's, they say that we've been fighting the Indian states battle, which is what makes us so unpopular among our own people. But I think one big issue with Kashmir is also that if they had a leadership where people felt that they genuinely represent us and they stand with us, something that they tried with Rashid Engineer. But there's such a cloud around who propped him up. But similarly, if you look at Jharkhand, again, tribal state, they have a Jharkhand Mukti Morcha, which there's trust in a party that can fight for us.
But
and
JMM
can protect us
could organize themselves as a
Yeah.
political,
So I think
unit.
political force and a sense in people that our aspirations will find a voice politically matters a lot.
That makes
And then it could be anything. Then you can have tribals who join the BJP, the Congress, they can be communist capitalists, but they're our own people giving us various political options.
Right.
So I think that would be key to what happens here.
I think
What sort of
BJP is-
political-
Sorry, go on.
No, I'm just saying that what sort of political representation they get will define the nature of what this morphs into.
I think the statements by Home Ministry is sort of paving the way for BJP opening their arms to some people joining them. And
No, I think whatever
that's
the
also-
politics.
sorry.
With Bodoland, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah,
They all
yeah.
joined the BJP.
don't
It was
forget,
a
Vanvasi
it was a-
Kalyan Ashram has been working for a long time.
It was a very
No,
deadly militant movement.
whatever the politics is, whatever the representation is, I don't think it will stand in the way of corporatization.
Yeah, of course.
It just cannot.
Which also may not be a bad thing as long as there's a redressal mechanism,
Yeah.
which can provide justice, which is judicial reforms is the only way. But last word to Jayashree before we move on to the emails.
No, I would say that I think to come back entirely to this Operation Black Forest and so on. So I think right now this militaristic approach is working very well, as you said, whatever the Home Ministry is pursuing in Chhattisgarh. But also there needs to be another plan after this if we're thinking that they look towards politics or whatever for some kind of respite. But also at the heart of all this extremism and insurgency and so on is poverty, right? So if you have sort of targeted approaches to what they plan for Bastar and kind of development programs and rehabilitation programs, I think only then you see the next chapter of what is the end of left-wing extremism, especially in Chhattisgarh. So,
Right. Okay, we'll move on to the emails. I'd just like to remind our subscribers, we only entertain the emails of subscribers. So if you're not a subscriber, you can scan this QR code or click on the link in the show notes below and become a subscriber and power journalism that is not paid for by advertising, whether it's Sarkari and government advertising or advertising of large corporations. And then you can also give us feedback that we will discuss and we don't leave any of it out. And as you also may already know, if you're a long-time viewer and listener of Hafta, we have got a new system where we curate 4 to 6 emails every week, and then all the other emails that get collected and they go into 40, 50, 60, 70. We will be addressing all of them together every 4 to 5 weeks in a separate recording of Hafta feedback, which we are calling
subscriber take.
Subscribers Take.
Subscriber.
Hafta Subscribers Take. because there's a pun. Hafta is take and subscribers take, so you can get it.
God.
So you
We'll change the name ASAP.
so you can you can send your feedback to podcasts@newslaundry.com. I repeat, podcasts@newslaundry.com. Or you can click on the link in the show notes below. This week's emails, and I'd like to do this in All India Radio style. इस हफ्ते की ईमेल की रचना की है हमारे सब्सक्राइबर्स ने, चयन किया है रमन किरपाल ने, और प्रस्तुति करेंगी मनीषा पांडे.
अच्छा, और received from KK, Dheeraj, you have to do in mutual funds, no?
Okay,
Voice.
mutual funds you have to do. Okay, so
Receive letters from.
So we have received letters from KK, Dheeraj, Soumya, Akanksha, Ashutosh, Bharat, N747, and Kezia, Rakhi, Tanya, Anuja, Kumar, Gaurav, Vikram, Amin, Harkirat, and 2 anonymous letters, which we'll be reading out in the special letters of the Hafta, but the others will be read out right now, which have been curated.
Too
like I
slow.
said.
Mutual fund should be. Okay. Perry Sai Teja, I think we read a lot of letters by him.
Yeah, Perry, you're writing a lot of
think
emails, which we appreciate.
Maybe, yeah, but
But
maybe
you're
we are
getting
being
undue representation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Too much. He's there in every awful and awesome
Yeah.
Hafta. He's there.
Brahminism.
2 to 3 letters we are reading in. Okay, anyway, he says respected NL Hafta. Nothing respected about us. But anyway, having experienced unreliable misinformation everywhere, I commend independent journalists for providing accurate, verified information. Now that there's ceasefire in place, we must start asking uncomfortable questions, like how the attacks are happening in the first place. Was it a security failure and who's responsible? Despite being a Vishwaguru, it seems Trump does not care much for India's concerns. I'm afraid Operation Sindhu does not stop independent journalists from asking questions to the government. Don't be afraid. I mean, that is a good thing. It should not. Also, please discuss and condemn in strongest term the deplorable proclamations by MP Minister against Colonel Sofia Qureshi. Courage is contagious, but also very short in supply. And recommendations is the 4-part documentary by DW, Hitler's Reich, Diaries of Supporters, Opponents and Victims. Okay, wow. Should watch that. Sounds interesting.
Thank you, Perry.
Peter Cat Recording says, in an earlier hafta, Shardool said that during the UPA years, India lacked strategic depth, which is why Manmohan Singh was criticized, while the Modi government is now doing a better job. I disagree. What did the theatrics around Balakot really achieve? 5 years later, we are back to square one with no tangible gains. Manmohan's restraint, on the other hand, rallied global support, diplomatically isolated Pakistan, and helped maintain relative calm until Modi and Dovan reignited tensions in Kashmir.
Do you have anything?
Yes. So, Peter, you have all the right to disagree, and I don't disagree with that. But just from the top of my head, if you remember 2006 statement by Manmohan Singh, and then 2009 statement by external minister or defense minister, I'm not sure, SM Krishna, with Pakistan equivalent, undermined India's policy that we will not negotiate while the terror is bred, trained and nurtured on Pakistan soil. And Manmohan Singh's statement sort of conflated equal responsibility. There cannot be equal responsibility between victim and the perpetrator, abuser. And if you remember the years, I'm sure Abhinandan does, everybody does. Back then, bomb blast used to be a every year thing. Like I remember when I had just moved out of GK, जब GK में हुआ था, and then Sarojini Nagar blast, some blast there.
High Court में 2014 के बाद हुआ था. There was a High Court one.
It has reduced significantly in the past decade. So you cannot deny. And look, back then India, there were statements, I'm not sure, I'm not able to recall the book, but a defense personnel retired had said that we wanted to retaliate across the border at the terror centers, but the government restrained them. So this restraint thing, like you can only stay restrained for so long. If you remain restrained long enough, then you are not restrained, you are leashed. And that leash in somebody's hand. And you do not need, I'm sorry to use the word, but like this global support, Choudhary, like who are these Choudhary? Yahan Choudhary keval hamari chalegi. If you don't like it, then it's okay.
Yeah, but I mean, while I agree with some what you're saying, you have to be in a certain position to say we don't care about global support. We are not in that position.
Of course, yes.
So China is in that position. So,
but one thing, can we think, I was just thinking about this actually, that 15 years ago, had we done something like this to Pakistan, like launched terror strikes without giving proof to the world, without any investigation, would we have attracted more censure from everyone? And
yes.
Today we don't have that?
No, I don't think so. I think...
Or is it a function of just different world leaders now doing whatever they want?
I think on the contrary, I think there are 2 or 3, factors that have changed dramatically. One is the world is more inward looking right now. Each country is looking more inward than it is now. It is very shamelessly and transparently self-interest and not, what is the right thing to do. The second thing is, I think had we done it close on the heels of Bush's, incursion
War on,
into
Iraq.
Afghanistan, Iran, then you see when you time it, then you can say, hello, what are you doing? Like, for example, what Israel is doing right now, that can actually get a lot of countries to under that shadow do 5 other things. You see, because then
Absolutely.
you can say that if you cannot call them out, you can't call us out either.
Yeah.
So I think there are so
But-
many things
No,
that
I
yeah,
don't
but I
see-
think it would
I-
also be a function a little bit of our own diplomacy. That
So-
we
No, I don't. The way Shardool has presented it, the Manmohan Singh versus, just a minute, Manmohan Singh versus
Modi.
Modi, I do not think it should be explained this way. I think our foreign policy is consistent. Even Manmohan Singh's time, I think the strategy that they adopted, as the subscriber is saying, his government was also able to isolate Pakistan, and it was more importantly, the government was able to raise, its voice at the global level. So I think it was in consistency. And yes, right now we are more aggressive. Earlier we
Yeah, but
were
this
less
is,
aggressive.
again, this is purely for, academic purposes. There is no
Yes.
way. It is like, did the stimulus work? You cannot create that situation again and did this.
So I agree with Raman and Abhinandan. If you remember, I made the argument that Pakistan is less relevant to the world now. Back then it was. So that also plays in. And one thing which Peter mentioned about Balakot. So Balakot did help us in identifying our problems. We found out that our missile sort of range was less than Pakistan's.
Right.
But the good thing, which I do not like this government, like that should be obvious for people who watch our programs. But one thing this government has done is, at least in this defense, they picked up their strategy and they changed it after they found out that we were 10, which is a refreshing change.
But just one point I want to make is that every major conflict in India has had either a particular person in the military or a particular battalion or a platoon, etc., whether it's from Abdul Hamid to Vikram Batra, on whose films have been made. Abhinandan was unfortunately captured, but there was certain, whether it's the
Manik
Gurkhas or
Shaw,
something, or
like the biggest-
this is the first time I have seen, and maybe some media commentator can write a piece on it, where the hero of the battle is Modi. Whether it is through visual representations, whether it's through posters, whether it's through who is the king. The film that will be made 5 years from now will not be about Vikram Batra or, any wing commander. It will be about Modi. There'll be no Sam Manik Shaw. That I think is completely new and distasteful and quite vulgar.
But no, you're right, in the sense that, like, say, border was made on the battalion that was stationed
Yes.
there, the Punjab
Yeah.
regiment.
Even the
So,
short stories he read in school were on
Here
specific
we do
battalions on
the
specific.
Air Force fighter pilots or the squadron or the
Abdul
marshal
Hamid used to be the hero.
is not at the forefront of it.
But this is
local-
tech warfare, no?
Yeah, but irrespective, that doesn't mean Modi is the king.
Ah,
na?
of course.
In
I'm
our
not-
ICSC book, there was one story on Abdul Hamid. There was one story on another battle. I forget the specific one. That was in the China battle. This one platoon that had got stuck somewhere and they fought till the end.
Yeah, in
Right,
canvas
right.
shoes.
Yeah.
The two guys killed many
So there
Chinese.
were many. Then there was one stories of the tank battle of 71. I think we had 2 or 3
Famously,
stories.
Sam
Longowala.
Manik Shaw, who was actually with a very strong prime minister, but we still talk about Sam Manik Shaw.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, Vaibhav says, Dear NL team, thank you for your wonderful work. I love Manisha, but seeing her arguing about Sindoor not being a symbol of patriarchy was disappointing. The symbols may be different, but each culture has practices which reinforce patriarchy. Normalizing such symbols as part of culture is dangerous. The measure of something is symbol of patriarchy is not quite simple. Does it apply to both men and women equally? Are women subjected to social judgment or for not following it? If you observe closely, the institution of marriage itself doesn't pass these tests. It's an unequal relationship where you stay, who owns majority of assets, how inheritance is distributed, etc. And I don't need to tell you the social judgment that unmarried women have to face. The progress that has happened is because of scientific developments in our knowledge and the women's movements which fought against all such practices. There's another one in Sindoor, so I can read all of them together. Vasundhara says, "Hi NL team, I am 96 born, so I believe that qualifies me as Gen Z."
No, millennial.
96 is not millennial,
It is.
Yeah, 90s would be millennial.
really.
Gen Z would be 2000
Yeah,
and beyond.
post
Okay.
2000.
Millennial is until 96. I think.
Okay,
Mm.
so
It's 81 to.
so you're on the
something.
border. I think Sindoor is patriarchal, as are Mangalsutra, toe rings, bindis, and white saris. When society makes decisions for what is appropriate for people to wear depending on their marital status without a parity between the man and the woman, it's patriarchal. Hindu society denied privileges to women who were not married, allowed them to marry only once, remember Sati, and these things are very obvious outward markers. Girls are conditioned to want to wear these things watching their mothers, but they can also do so if they marry and lose the right again if their husbands die before them. Sindoor is not like makeup or jewelry. I also think marriage is patriarchal. In Indian society, women's social position and acceptance changes depending on whether they marry, whether they can have children, whether they have sons, how many sons they have. Men are not judged as much. Keep up the amazing work. One more Sindoor letter. So I'll finish all the... To Abhinandan, who dismissed patriotism as a primitive virtue, I wonder if the prefix patri is the problem.
No.
He and Raman were frivolously cribbing about Sindoora being a symbol of patriarchy. Is patriotism... I like how she's narrowed it to patri. If patriotism is primitive because it has Adi
Adiprash.
with patriarchy,
Sorry, what is Adi
what does that
Prash?
mean?
The prefix.
I don't.
Okay.
The prefix.
Strange to see lefties having problems, fatherly references.
With fatherly reference.
Having problems with fatherly. Why?
Does
It's not
matriotism
strange.
sound better?
Does matriotism sound any better? Is it simple to equate harmless customs to ghettoization symbols of oppression? On a side note, who are Arunachalam, Kirpal, Sekhri in surnames? Vestiges of patriarchy? Why
Yes,
aren't they
of course
gone?
they are vestiges of patriarchy.
Why aren't they gone?
Oh,
If being
God.
primitive is a problem, a bacterium supposedly primitive is more advanced than humans, and bacteria will outlive all life forms. More
I'll jump in
seriously-
here because why aren't they gone? Because we are not allowed to let go of them because of patriarchy. I mean, you think I do not want to have to apply for a passport and put my father's name. I do not want to, if I'm participating in a court case, have to give my father's name. I do not want to constantly give my father's name if I'm applying for a visa or for any sort of document that I, as an almost 40-year-old woman, should be able to do without saying, well, here is my father, here is my husband, and therefore I'm allowed to do what I want to do. But it is because of patriarchy that we are forced to. So I feel...
Says more seriously, see Ram Guha's Patriots and Partisans, where he explains what he means by patriotism, which is among many a useful one. As a general point, I want to convey something that I wish to share.
Yeah, so that point,
As a general point,
with
you can cut.
Shrikanta, what you've said is that yes, we read, while we only read out 150 words, but we've read the emails in toto. So that we do. But on this point, two things, since you have specifically called out Raman and me. On one note, I think you yourself have acknowledged your...
It's a joke.
It's a joke. So yeah, it's got nothing. But like Jayashree said, yes, those are all vestiges of patriarchy. And in fact, I think any surname is a vestige of some power dynamic. If I would have taken my mother's name and called myself Abhinandan Iyer, it would be an establishment of some Brahminical, showing off. In fact,
Also, you still
this
wouldn't
whole-
be taking your mother's name. You'll be taking like your mother's father's name.
Exactly. So
unless if you call your mother, if you call yourself like...
so that's
I don't know,
complicated. So
Yeah.
I know certain people who've dropped their name altogether, which Ashutosh, while I disagree with him on many things, my former colleagues from Aaj Tak, who's Swaraj, he is Ashutosh. And even when I met him for the first time at Aaj Tak, I said, Ashutosh what? He said, why? Ashutosh is not enough. I said, okay, it's enough. So he just dropped it. I don't know how he deals with it on this thing basis. Or if I become as, famous as Prince or Madonna, like then you just have one name. You're like Prince, you're Madonna. You don't need a second name. You're Queen, whatever.
No, there's a huge problem. My friend's daughter, she went to UK to do PhD, and her name, she did not take, her father's name. And this at the airport, they kept asking her, ki, what is your surname? What is your last name? What is your now? She faced lots of problems.
So
People
And so-
do face.
So Sikhs, in fact, the core and the Singh introduction for women and men was precisely to fight this, your caste identification from your last name.
Right.
So all men are Singh, all women are Kaur.
So,
But on
Also, there's
Sindoor,
that 17-year-old child who she was the topper in the ICSE exams or whatever. The results came out recently, and she goes by her first name because she wanted to drop the surname because she said it's patriarchal and religious and whatever. And I just want to go by my first name. So a lot of like BBC, Times of India, everyone did stories on her saying this girl is a topper. She got 100%. The number of rape threats and death threats that child got, and she's 17 years old, because they're like, oh my god, she thinks she's too good for her father's name. Because, and this again it is patriarchy. You're saying, oh, why don't you drop the name? People who do drop the name have multitudes of issues. I mean, it's logistical, it's abusive.
And there's vanity also, yeah.
Yes.
Honestly, it's. I mean, I didn't choose to be called Sekhri, or Raman didn't choose to be called. But now that is a part of your identity. If I had
this is
kids,
my name now.
and if I had kids, one of my kids became a football player, and he was playing, I'd like his name to read Sekhri, because if he scores a goal and he does this, it says Sekhri. Vanity comes in there, yeah. It's purely.
God forbid he played cricket.
No, then he played cricket. I changed my name.
Serves you right.
So two things I want to say. One letter writer, I forgot your name. Unmarried men also gets flack, unbelievable flack in India. So please, that is, I think, democratic. Two.
यार एक तो unbelievable flack नहीं मिलती. I am the only unmarried man here.
क्या बात कर रहे हो?
And you were married at some point.
I am not anymore, which is worse.
So I just want to say,
what a fight this has devolved into. Who is worse off?
On this, I want to just put out there.
The man who has once been married. Like,
I don't think unmarried men have any sort of social stigma. I've seen many of them. Dude, people like Modi ji and me, we have never faced.
in fact, our leaders have only been unmarried, the popular ones.
Yes, and they lecture about
people like Atal ji, Modi, Rahul and me. Dude, if unmarried men are whining about being a social stigma, then you're generally losers for other reasons. It has nothing to do with you not being married.
So you are these privileged unmarried men, not including Abhinandan.
No, I am also privileged unmarried.
No,
I accept.
about the thing Manisha was talking about, that all our leaders have been like this.
but Modi has been married, guys. Why are we all forgetting it?
Was
But that doesn't count.
That doesn't count.
I mean, my point is, they have been lecturing us ad nauseum for a long time about how to run relationships. The girlfriend रख के बता एक साल, तो पता चल जाएगा सब. The second point I wanted to make was the last name thing is that this last name, I read it somewhere in some articles. It's coming up again in the sort of viral cycle, that India before colonialism had less sort of emphasis on last names. It's the colonial experience which has included middle names and last names a lot, which, like, I think Raman sir also said that UK and Western Europe emphasizes on it more.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway,
Fine. So the rest of the emails will be collected and read in our email special. Let's get the recommendations for the week before we wind up.
But on the Sindoor thing, I must say that I really researched its origins. And apparently it's Harappa Valley civilization is where they found figurines with first use of Sindoor, which predates Hinduism.
yes.
My friends share the same shock as the letter writer, that how can you support it as not I mean, I don't support it or not, but I don't find it patriarchal. But I think two things. One is that on equality test, maybe it fails, you're right, because it comes from a time where men were making decisions on how women should look.
Yes.
I don't think women came together and decided, okay, we'll wear a Sindoor for our wedding, whatever. Probably a priest decided. So it's unequal. But on the oppression thing, I still think that there's just not enough proof today to say that women are being oppressed into wearing a Sindoor. Most women wear it out of choice or out of some sort of conservative sense. You can at best call it conservative choice, I think, but it's as patriarchal to me as, say, maybe high heels are. I mean, I don't see, it's the same sort of burden that is put on women to look a certain way. And it is, I would say it is still very different from burqa, which is a negation of womanhood. Sindoor is, whatever it is, an aesthetic celebration of a married woman. But I'd also say it's different from a hijab. Women across cultures, continents have worn scarves on their heads for various reasons, not just Islam. Certain segments of Islam, it's a bit, it's a bit strident in the sense that you can't have a strand of hair showing. But in North Africa, Islamic cultures have the scarf and the headgear, and it's not that stringent. So even if there's a comparison to be made, I'd say hijab would be more comparable than to a burqa, which is only comparable to a ghungat, I think.
Yes.
But you can't say, I mean, I completely push back at the idea that one is negation of womanhood and the other is celebration of it. I mean, I think they're both serving the same purpose in different ways, but not that
No,
one
no.
is.
The one is an
sort of
aesthetic. It is still,
No.
when you read about it or how it is still an aesthetic embellishment. Yes,
No.
I
reserved
think
for
it
women.
is. I think we find
But
it
burqa is
easier
like
to
cover
think
your
of it as
face.
an aesthetic embellishment because it's a very prettified way of looking at something, which to me is exactly the same in terms of the symbol that it represents.
But
Yeah,
hiding
I-
your face is different from.
No, I just think it's what you're used to. For example,
Yeah.
that tribe that makes its necks longer
Yes.
by
yes.
doing that.
Yeah.
It's an
Or the
ugly-
Maori tattoos
it could, but
that
to
women do.
them it looks beautiful.
Or that lip plate.
So, hijab and just the eyes can look beautiful. So I think that's just a question of what is normalized for you. I don't think that has anything to do with one is a celebration and the other is, a negation or I think that's too subjective, like way too broad. It couldn't be anything like pajab. I think it really adds to the look of a
Yes.
foot. But to many people, Westerners who I've
Stocking
met,
is-
they find it really strange to see, this chan on an ankle
Anklet.
metal. I was like, but
But
because
hiding is different from embellishing, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Which again, I say hijab is not the same. Hijab, I think, is a very cultural kind of a practice across different cultures and centuries and continents. Specific to hiding of face is my.
So now the recommendations. You want to go first, Jayashree?
Yes, I have excellent recommendations.
Oh, you're saying
Oh.
yourself.
Self-congratulation.
They're so good, guys. So good.
Yes.
No,
Ekdam
so
number
I
one.
was reading a lot on Jayant Narlikar, who died this week, and there were many really sweet and inspiring obituaries, but I'm recommending one that I read in Rediff, of all places, because it was just really deeply affectionate. It was by a man who was very close to him, and it talks about the character of Narlikar, who asked questions. He was very irreverent. He not only showed technical competence, but also a lot of philosophical courage. And it's a very sweetly sort of told obituary. It's called Jayant Narlikar, A Voice That Lit the Cosmos. My second recommendation is Mahesh Raut, who is arrested in the Bhima Koregaon conspiracy case. He is currently lodged in Taloja prison, where he's conducted a survey. He spoke to 573 prisoners who live in Yard 3. He interviewed all of them. And the sort of findings that he's gathered are very interesting. So, on average, they've spent 28 months in jail. 94% of them are under trials. Nearly half of them don't have lawyers. And more than half weren't produced in court on stipulated dates. And this is through personal conversations that he's had with every inmate that he's come across in this yard. So I think it's worth reading. Next is Gautam Bhatia's deconstruction of the Mahmoodabad Supreme Court hearing. Basically, he talks about what the Supreme Court didn't say, what you can understand based on oral observations, and also what the law and precedent says before it. So he has said, we may very gently suggest that if Mahmoodabad used his analytical mind to issue such an incredibly subtle dog whistle that we need 3 police officers to tell us where the whistle was and who the dogs were, then it is very clearly a really terrible dog whistle. So,
No,
great
but-
piece. Please read it. And I have a fourth recommendation, which is
Nice.
very short, but it's a really sweet piece in the Hindu. How to mark the centenary of the Madras Zoo in 1955, the Madras Corporation requested Moscow Zoo send them a polar bear. And that sad polar bear did arrive in Madras via Kabul. The logistics of it were very interesting. Did the cub survive? No, it died very quickly. But it's just a very interesting sort of throwback piece on what happened when a polar bear arrived in Madras.
You're
and then
oddly
it could not
pleased by
survive.
this, Jayashree.
Yeah, oddly
It's a polar
pleased.
bear in Madras. How can you be smiling?
It's blowing my mind. Who thought this was a good idea? So then not only did the polar bear come and then it died, and then what did the Madras Corporation do? They immediately called up Moscow Zoo and they said, we want another one.
How
And-
crazy.
Yeah. And that the second one did come, by the way. But yeah, those are my 4
Makes
recommendations.
no sense.
All right.
The Jayashree has suggested Gautam Bhatia's breakdown of the Supreme Court order, but I think we should read the Facebook post that he put out, the Ashoka professor. It is the most simply written, logical thing to have been out there. I don't know what dog whistles they're looking for, and it's actually it's just shocking to my mind, actually. So everyone should just read the original post to know what he was really saying. Malini Subramaniam's pieces in the Scroll, the last two ones, have been very good on these operations that have been happening in Chhattisgarh. Must read to understand what has been happening and to listen to local voices, which are very few and far between in our mainstream media narrative. And an old interview with Sudha Bhardwaj, because we've spoken so much about these Naxal areas, Maoism. It's a 2-hour long interview. It's with me, but I really think, and it's out of the paywall now, one must see it to understand what people like her presented for the tribals of these areas. Hopeful. These people gave a, way, people like Sudha Bhardwaj, gave an option to tribals to take the constitutional route rather than go towards the gun. So they're really heroes. And it's a shame that we've been calling them terrorists or Naxals or urban Naxals or whatever, because had it not been for people like her who were telling people that you could go to court, you could fight for justice, it would have been way worse.
Yeah.
So we should really thank people like her and do listen to everything she has to say about those areas where she's been living.
Raman sir?
I have not been reading much. I mean, especially the books, excepting some health books I was reading. But during my leave, when I went away, I picked up the one old book by Orhan Pamuk, Istanbul. So I've started reading that, and fantastic book. I mean, what expressions. So I'm just in the middle of it. So also making me, I also would love to go to Istanbul, after reading this.
Traitor! You can't now.
And now we can't.
So-
Istanbul was
So
one of my
at
favorite
some
places.
point, no, I think the situation will not
No, today
stay the
we've
same.
said, we've told China and Turkey both that please be considerate, and we will also be considerate. So I think things will become okay.
Chinese to bilkul
No, but tell
understand.
me, have Pakistanis stopped going to Eiffel Tower because we bought Rafale jets? I mean, also we have to have some sort of, where can we
Yeah.
actually impact
We-
foreign policy and where we can't?
My second recommendation is 2 articles in Indian Express. Suhas Palishkar, yes, which appeared yesterday, and today Pratap Bhanu Mehta. Both of them have written about the arrest of this Ashoka University professor, and also they have, especially Pratap Bhanu Mehta, is called out the Supreme Court, interim order or whatever, that the bail order, the benevolence of the Supreme Court is really harsher, and it is setting a precedent for such arrest in the future. I think it's beautifully written, the 2 articles. And I think the third, there's one more article which came in Hindu, which is a kind of debate, question answers, where the 2, Pratik Sinha is there and Nirupama Subramanian. So they have been asked, is it possible to, report truthfully during the war? So what rules should be there? What rules do we follow, the media? So it's about the media and the way there was so much misinformation during this war. So I think it was, in a way, it was good. It gives a perspective to this war reporting.
Right. I was thinking about 4, but I contained myself to 3. So first one is, I think the first letter I wrote to you, Abhinandan, I referenced this, but the situation has grown. So the first recommendation is a video on one of my favorite channels. I think I've recommended stuff from this before. It's Veritasium. It's scientist has a YouTube channel. So this video is named "How One Company Secretly Poisoned the Planet." And I mentioned dark waters in the very first letter I wrote to you, that how DuPont has poisoned everything in the world by Teflon. So the research has moved on, and you see that some people are fighting these unforgiving fights, and everybody is complicit. Every government and every corporate is complicit. So first is that. Second, the economics thing you mentioned. So my second recommendation is a game. And I have stopped playing games for almost 5 months now because I'm trying to cramp up 6 to 7 years of economics studies in 5 months because I want to report on it, even at least try to. So I've stopped playing games, but this game is exceptional. It's called Clair Obscure Expedition 33. It's an indie production. It's a first-time studio, and the storytelling and the nuances and the dialogue writing and combat mechanics, which is a very important part of a game. absolutely fun, and it's cheap because it's an indie game. So try and play this. And third is, I try to study things, but I end up writing poetry these days. So third is a old sort of novella, not novella, I mean a novel and play. It's called Ashar Ka Ek Din. It's one of the first plays written in independent India, and it's about the love life in 3 acts of. In 3 acts, it's the love life of Kalidas, Mahakavi Kalidas. It's beautiful. It's from Meghdut, a section of Meghdut, but it's very beautiful. So yes.
So I have
What
two
does Ashar mean?
Ashar means summer months. Chaitra, Vaishak, Jesht, Ashar, the 4th month in the Indian calendar.
I have 2 recommendations. One is Jon Stewart's show, The Daily Show.
Yes.
This is an episode where he slammed the bombshell Biden book. And I think he's old and now so many more have come up, but he's still the best because while he uses humor, the depth of his insight into journalism beats Jimmy Kimmel, beats the other guy, what's his name?
John Oliver.
John Oliver?
John Oliver or Stephen Colbert. They are really funny, but he can really cut to the journalistic fuck-ups, and he's roasted CNN this time and not Fox. And the second is, I highly recommend this. It's called How Economists and TikTok Know If a Recession is Coming. It's an interesting way to understand how they actually foresee recessions, but this one especially, not just for the economist angle, but how TikTok knows, because I remember during COVID, I had friends who work for Amazon, and I used to speak with them because they had more credible and accurate data on which part of India or the world is there a surge, because the government data was just not credible. And it is amazing the kind of information that big tech companies have. These big tech companies, Amazon, sales of oxygen concentrators, which you could order online, or those things were to check your oxygen levels. On the kind of stuff that suddenly surged in their orders, they would know, even if the government wanted to put out the data, the government would get the data weeks after these guys had real-time data on where the surge is happening. So
did they help?
all these,
They should have helped the government then.
I mean, I don't know if they work for the government or not, but it is the kind of data that these, social media and big tech companies are getting. They know exactly what's happening way beyond anybody else. So these 2 are my recommendations. And thank you all again for all the support and the, go messages we've got. Do support us, QR code again. And we'd like to thank our subscribers. We'd like to thank our wonderful producer, Priyali, and our wonderful sound recordist, Anil. And we'll see you again next week. Thank you, Manisha. Thank you, Raman sir.
Thank you.
Shardul.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Jayashree.
Thank you.